Okay guys, what's up? It's Shafe. Hey, I'm going to do a really quick example of pulling focus. Now this is an excellent technique. It's a fairly dramatic technique that you'll see in a lot of commercials, a lot of documentaries, a lot of feature films. And right now, as you can obviously see, nothing in our frame is in focus right now. The entire thing is out of focus. Now I'm going to pull our focus to two separate focal points, one being the foreground and one being the background. And let's pull to our foreground right now. Now I'm doing all this by hand. I'm not using focus assist or anything like that on my camera. There are methods that you can use, but right now I'm just eyeballing it, so we might be slightly out of focus, but the foreground looks like it's in pretty good focus. And now the reason why I chose this foreground is because of these little bottles or whatever you call, they've got writing on them, and you can see if the writing is crisp or not. So if you're just a little bit out of focus, you're going to see that, you know, that the word love on the far right bottle isn't in perfect focus because it's just a little blurry. So you want to look at that when you're focusing. So now it is, and we can even pull just a tiny bit to see the other one. So here, let me go over and change those so they're all facing us. My wife picked these out. Now because we're using a very long lens here, I can have one of these bottles in focus and the other one, like Live, appears to be in pretty good focus. Laugh is a little bit out. Love is pretty far out of focus. So I can go back and forth from, you know, Love being in focus to Live being in focus, and I'm just barely touching our focus ring. So once again, let's go all the way out of focus, and let's come in and let's focus on the middle one, so that'll be the easiest. So then all three will be in fairly good focus. So let's focus on the word laugh, and that seems like it's in pretty good focus. The next thing I want to do here, and you'll see this a lot, is, oh, my toast is done. Let's go from the foreground to the background here. Oh, and look, it's snowing out. So I'm trying to get the lines of the grass in really sharp focus. There's a fence there that you can see, and it's snowing, and the lines of the grass blowing in the wind. And it looks pretty good from here. Once again, I'm just eyeballing it. I'm looking at my LCD screen. So you'll see this a lot, right? Where you start off with the background in focus, and then they pull to the foreground, right? You see that all the time. And then, or the opposite, they start off with the foreground, and then we pull to the background. And lots of times you'll see that the whole thing's out of focus, and then it'll pull to the background, and then it'll pull to the foreground. Just called pulling focus. It's a pretty cool little effect that we do. It takes a lot of practice. And let's move over to our flower. See how that looks when we pull focus to it. Looks a bit out of focus right now. My wife just got this flower the other day at, I guess one of her students gave it to her, because they're on spring break now. And that looks pretty good. Looks pretty good focus. You want to pay attention to the details in this when you're pulling focus. You want to look at all the little lines on the petals here, see if they're all showing up. You want to take a look at these tiny little parts of this plant right here to see if they're all showing up really sharp. And if they're not showing up very sharp, you want to just keep pulling until they do. That looks about good. I'll do a picture of me and my boy fishing. Let me change our ISO because it looks a little dark. Okay, so I'd move the ISO up to 400. Looks like it's in pretty good focus. Now what I'm going to look at to make sure that this is in focus when I'm doing it, I'm gonna look at these lines right here. And I'm gonna see if these lines look blurry at all. And until they stop looking blurry and start looking really sharp, that's when I'll stop pulling. So that looks pretty good. Also, you can make out some tiny little bumps in the white stripes, and they're not bumps, they're just whatever, the stitching, because it's like a fabric frame. You want to look for the details like that and make sure that your details are showing up, and until your details are showing up perfectly, then you're not in focus. So that looks pretty good. Okay, and then we can turn it the other way and then bring it back. And that looks pretty good. So I'm just eyeballing it. There is another method to doing this, using the autofocus and then taking it out of autofocus, which I'll show you guys some other time. But anyways, that's pulling focus. And